And let's get right to that college issue, our focus today. The Democrats and Donald Trump say the government should stop profiting off student debt. Sanders thinks public universities should be free. Clinton advocates lowering tuition through federal grants to states. Kasich says graduates should pay off loans through public service. Cruz wants to abolish the Department of Education. We got to wondering how a person who actually runs a university hears the campaign rhetoric. Well, James B. Milliken joins us. He's the Chancellor of the City University of New York, which serves roughly 500,000 students on 24 campuses. This program is a production of the City University of New York. CUNY has, I'm going to go through some of the history with you. It had free but merit-based tuition until 1970. My parents went for free. Those in night schools and general studies have paid since way back in 1909 and without any scholarships. Then in the justice-conscious 1970s, CUNY let everyone in free, open enrollment, but with the city's fiscal crisis in '76, tuition was instituted. And clearly from that brief history, both the economy and politics matter to the tuition and equality questions. So where are we now in that duality, to use New York's CUNY system as an example?
Right. Well, CUNY, as you said, your parents went for free, as did Jonas Salk and Colin Powell and Andy Grove and many other Americans who benefited terrifically from CUNY's promise. Right now, CUNY has one of the lowest levels of tuition in the country today. 70% of our students actually do go tuition free through Pell Grants nationally and through a very generous tuition assistance program that the state of New York provides. So, and then other institutional grants and aid. So CUNY still offers the promise of one of the most affordable opportunities in public higher education, and it's probably why so many students who are low income, so many new Americans, 40% of our undergraduates were born in another country, 40% come from a household of 20,000 or less income. So CUNY is still the place, I think, the pathway to the middle class that it was in 1909 and in 1970. It's just done a little differently, supported differently with state and federal aid to offset tuition, which is low generally. Then on the debt side, which I heard one of the candidates refer to on the tape, because of the low tuition and high financial aid at CUNY, 80% of our graduates leave with no federal debt. And those that do have debt have a debt level about half the national average for public institutions. So making it free for the other 30% may not be the highest priority at CUNY, and we can talk a little bit about that.
Well, how much tuition, if you can put a number on it, becomes a barrier for the poorest students to enter? Bernie Sanders is running on the example of Germany, which he says charges $1,600 a year tuition now, and they're going to free because they decided it was too much of a barrier for too many.
Right. So in this country, we've had a lot of research done on this subject, and we've found that people tend to overestimate the cost of higher education, one, particularly public higher education, and also that they underestimate the amount of aid available. So at the end of the day, nothing is free. Somebody's going to pay for it, the federal government, the state government, tuition. So in the case of CUNY, for instance, or Nebraska or North Carolina, one of our jobs is to make sure that people understand that college is available and there is assistance for them, particularly those that have the greatest need.
There's a model at CUNY that is getting a lot of national attention in this regard called the ASAP program, or ASAP, Accelerate Study in Associate Programs, the associate degree being what you get at community college.
Right. We want every student who comes into CUNY to leave with a degree that will help them move into the middle class, have a better quality of life, and support their families.
So I see 17% of all CUNY community college students get the 2-year degree in 3 years. That's low, 17%. but those in the ASAP program, 57%.
Right. So nationally, urban community college graduation rate over 3 years is about 16, 17%. So it's a significant problem nationwide. So what CUNY has done over almost the last 10 years when it started, but only in the last couple of years started to grow to scale, is to institute a program with a number of interventions that we know work. Full financial aid, full-time attendance, intrusive advising, and in New York, a free Metro card, because we often found that that was why students were skipping classes, making choices about paying their transportation costs.
Busted subway
So
fare,
a bundle of these interventions together is what ASAP is, and the difference, not just on CUNY's estimate, but national organizations that have done independent testing have found to be the most effective means to increase graduation rates at community colleges. And as you said, it's double, in some cases triple, what the average graduation rates are for community colleges.
But you said the goal is not to maximize enrollment. And I understand why a goal would be to maximize the success of those who are enrolled.
Right.
But isn't a national goal to maximize enrollment? Because if we're past the manufacturing economy, for which you don't need a college degree,
Right.
And in this global economy now, where almost everybody, or lots more people than in the past, need college degrees, one of the goals is to maximize enrollment nationally, no?
Well, that's part of it, because those jobs are not available for people who have 12 credits or 30 credits. They're available for people who have degrees, by and large. And so enrollment gets you in the door, and access gets you in the door, and affordability can keep you there. But what we need to do across the country, particularly at our urban community colleges, but I think at most of our public institutions, is to increase the graduation rates. And so we need to provide broad, affordable access, but then we need those supports that students who come in with the least preparation need more than their counterparts at Ivy League institutions. And that's often what's lacking, and that's institutional support.
You've described 3 good-sounding programs to get students through with minimum debt in New York, in Nebraska, and in North Carolina, 3 very different states and 3 parts of the country. I imagine all state university and urban university that are public college presidents would come in and tell me about similar stories at their institutions. And yet, we seem to have this massive student debt crisis that's become a major issue for all the presidential candidates. What's going wrong, in your opinion?
Well, so most of higher education financing is done at the state level. So that is an interesting dimension of the presidential debate on college costs and on debt. And in some states, there's been a significant disinvestment in higher education. I mean, the high water mark for state investment as a proportion of total cost, probably in the mid-80s. And so as a percentage of the total cost of higher education, it has generally gone down around the country, and in some cases, down significantly. New York happens to have one of the better records with the tuition assistance program in student aid. So in many places, there is a very significant problem right now where states have disinvested, where they have raised tuition to make up for that disinvestment, and that has led to what's referred to as skyrocketing tuition rates and crippling debt.
Let me try one partial solution to this on you from one of the candidates who's not in the race anymore. Marco Rubio talked about alternative accreditation, that is, getting accreditation for courses that you take in study-at-home programs like Coursera or Udacity.
Yeah.
So the student doesn't have to pay for the brick-and-mortar university infrastructure.
Right.
Do you like that idea?
Well, representing an institution that probably has the least brick and mortar per student in the country, I do like the idea. And so right now, CUNY has about 23,000 students in high school taking college courses. This is one way that they get college credit before they come to the university, and it's free. I attended my first graduation 2 years ago at Ostos Community College, and 40 young people stood up at the graduation ceremony getting their associate's degree. Next week, the week after, they were going to get their high school diploma. So they had managed to do that at the same time. I think that's a terrific model. I think that more online education, which we're doing considerably more of at CUNY, and you see around the country, is important and offers more opportunity. Even with 24 campuses, we still can't serve everyone who we would like to, who may be have restraints because of their work or their family or their location. And so being able to supplement that with high quality online education provided by our faculty, I think is a really important dimension of the access question.